Welcome, everybody, to UFO Man Live. My name is Tim. My co host this evening is Thom Reed from the Berkshire UFO Encounter.
Guys.
Tonight, we have a very special guest. His name is Robert D. Morningstar, very famous writer for producing the magazine UFO Digest. And he is talented in many different areas. He teaches Tai Chi in New York parks. He is a Tai Chi master. Um, he is very interested in alien abduction and the UFO phenomena. And tonight we're going to be speaking about uh, an article that he wrote on the JFK connection to UFOs. Welcome, Robert Morningstar. Anyways,
Thank
Robert,
you,
what I'd
Tim
like
and Thom.
Good seeing you again.
What I'd like to ask you first off, Robert, is if you could tell our listeners a little bit about your background.
My background, uh, you want to go all the way back to the beginning? I'll tell you.
Well,
I was
whatever you
conceived in New
find
Orleans,
that is,
Louisiana.
yeah.
Uh,
Tell
Well,
us what
I
you
would
would
say
like.
that what people are interested in is the city, raised. Well, I went to originally to a couple of public schools that my parents didn't consider too good, so I switched to parochial school, and I went through parochial school through high school, grammar school, high school, and I went to Fordham University thereafter. In high school, I had the privilege of going to Power Memorial Academy at the time when Kareem Jabbar was known as Lou Alcindor, and we were 2 years apart, and it was a very, I dare say, glorious time for basketball. New York City is. My high school were the national champions for 4 years because we had Kareem Jabbar when he was called Lou. So I graduated there and I did very well, and I won a Regents scholarship to go to Fordham University, where I was originally enrolled in then I decided healing and the real powers of healing. And my interest even at that time, ufology, was the field of parapsychology. And in America, the field of parapsychology was held in very low esteem, except that there was a core of researchers. For example, J.B. Rhine was one of the few who was studying parapsychology, but they were at such a rudimentary level. They were trying to prove that telepathy exists, and they were doing these famous Zener card studies. They would shapes to try to determine if you could predict them. Some people they found had negative ESP. They got more wrong than chance. But fortunately for me, in early 1970s, I got involved in martial arts, quickly. And from there, I migrated. Opened up for me the field of Sinology and Oriental psychology. And I've tried to combine bridge between Western science and Taoist physics. And, a lot of people got on the bandwagon, trying to become dancing Wu Li masters, masters of Western physics, but understanding its relationship to Taoism, quantum mechanics specifically. Excuse me, let me have a drink of water here. Thank you. So the reason I got involved with that is that I always had that parapsychology. It's a way of life in my family. About mother aunts who had the gifts of prophecies. They would tell them They certainly knew they were telepathic. They could read if we were getting into any mischief, their antennas were up. I'll give you a case in point. I was sneaking around the building where the couple had grammar school at the time. And all of a sudden, like feeling a little sneaky. So we had this elevator and we all figure, oh yeah, we're going to trip the emergency alarm on the other and split, but we have to do it on the floor that we don't. So we get into that mindset. Then we take the elevator and we just like, well, everyone. My mother looks at me and she says, "That was you, was it?" And I'm like, "But that was you who pressed that alarm." And so I had to admit it. And tore down. She said, the moment I knew it was you. It was go. It's just an example of
Robert?
people have that instinct. Many of us know stories about others. Yeah, go on.
We're going to keep your answers a little shorter because you're
I
cutting
can't hear you.
out. You're cutting out, and it's very difficult to hear
Okay.
your answers. So, Thom, go ahead, take it away.
Oh, well,
Okay.
I've known Bob for a long time. I mean, he was gracious enough to have me over his house about, my God, was 15 years ago or so. And I was talking with him about my case, and we had seen what looked like an ant, if you will. And I think there was some interest or connection, if you will, with what Bob thought might have been a reptilian of sorts. And so we talked about that. We went out for some drinks in the village with a good friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours. And then I think we played Frisbee in a park there in New York City for a while. And it was a nice visit. And but in doing so, we talked. Yeah, it was kind of fun. Yeah. And doing so, we talked a little bit about our case, and his thoughts. And at the time, I really wanted to pick his brain a little bit, because just because something happens to you doesn't mean, you have the answers. That you really know what's going on. And I trusted Bob. We also had a mutual friend that goes back long before our friend who played on the Patriots. Yeah. So if I may, maybe we could. Do you have the insect, the what we saw, what we encountered, and see what Bob thinks?
Yeah, I can bring
what this
that up.
is?
But there was a suggestion in the chat that if Robert goes to his avatar, his sound will clear up.
His avatar.
Yeah, when you turn your camera
My
off,
avatar.
see,
What does that mean? Click
just
the
turn
avatar.
click your camera so it goes off, and let's hear your sound. See if you cut out.
Okay.
Okay, now say something.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3 4.
Oh yeah, you sound much better. Let's
Yeah,
go with that.
less bandwidth.
Testing 1 2 3 4. Testing.
Hey, Robert, I think you got it. It's
Okay.
yeah, it's
fine
less
with me.
bandwidth.
Okay, here's the stick
Okay,
creature
great.
that he wanted you to look at.
Yeah, I've always wanted to ask. Yeah.
We've talked about that in the past. What's your take on?
Seems, yeah. Kind of, well, it seems to me somewhat like praying mantis, but without the carapace. That's what they
Without
call
the
that
what?
part of the insect that goes from the collar to that. See my own experiences. Carapace, Carapace, carapace. Part of the carapace. It's a section of the insect. And this one looks to me like if it was kind of naked, it just wasn't wearing the carapace, because the head definitely looks like the praying mantis shape head to me.
Okay,
And you
I've
said it
heard
was
from
what?
other.
How tall was he? Tall? Was he a biggie?
It sounds bad today.
Yeah,
Tom?
your sound
Yeah,
is breaking up again. But
yeah.
what I'm going to say to you is this: some people have suggested that it's more ant-like, that it lives underground. That we interviewed
Yes,
somebody
it has
last
that
week,
aspect too.
and we
Mhm.
interviewed somebody last week, or not last week, but the week before, who said
Mhm.
that it looked very much like the ant like alien life forms that allegedly live underground. And Thom mentioned that he was taken
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
somewhere like that.
Yeah, my father, who was very connected back in the day,
Mhm.
had also said to us, what we encountered was much closer to home than we realized. And so I'm wondering if that insect, if you will, or what I've considered to be an ant, because when I saw it, the depiction is good, but the head was more of a translucent, almost like a red fire ant. And I've always wondered if, I haven't run across
Mhm.
anyone else who's seen anything quite like this. Of course, this was talked about on History Channel and a few others,
You know what's
but it's so different
interesting
than
here?
anything else. And I've always wondered, was it just that we were young, we were children, so we were scared, and this is what we kind of remembered, or are we missing something? Is this something that's commonly seen? Is this something that seems to be more, you know, uh, personal to us, or is this something
I've
that?
heard of.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it is seen, but covered up in another way. It is definitely familiar to me. It looks like the mantis, but also it's interesting. Reddish orange
There's
creature
a
because
mantis in the
they're
middle of this picture.
really
Yeah.
sometimes people sometimes people call them the pinks. Some people in Ohio that I know said they're very cheerful, but not like the Zetas who are kind of foreboding. The mantis, I have to say, interesting alien that I've ever encountered. I've had several experiences throughout my life, categories.
So, did you say that there's something called the
And
pinks?
the
I've never heard that.
mantids were very interesting.
Hey, Robert, can you hear me?
They were very fascinating.
Wow, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I did. I said, when talking about the color of this creature, it reminded me that a couple of days ago, I was thinking about 12 to 15 years ago. On one day, I got alien reports from 3 different parts of the country: Texas, Ohio, and out west. And all of them were talking about pink, orange colored aliens. And one of those actually was a story that harkened back to 1963 when JFK had a UFO experience while he was on his yacht. A UFO appeared off the port starboard side of JFK's yacht, and everybody, including the Secret Service, freaked out. It was feet above the water, about 200 feet away, and all of a sudden they just saw it go into outer space. And that was told by a doctor who was married to JFK's cousin, who was on board that ship or that yacht that day, and told her husband about it. And he wrote about these orange colored aliens who were actually working with the United States. But that's one of the coincidences of that comment from you and this bug. Do you think they're subterranean?
Thom?
Well, yeah, I've always said that in 1969, we were taken underground, and that's why a lot of people say, "Oh, why do you not say you were abducted in '69?" Well, we were removed from the vehicle, but we were taken underground. I know that for a fact. I mean, I remember what the facility looked like, and there was a lot
Mhm.
going on at the time. And so I'm going to say I'm 99% sure, 90, 95% sure that we were underground. And
Yeah.
so with that,
Sounds like a military.
oh, the military was definitely involved. I mean, our case was tied to the space race and all the money that was being filtered into the Berkshires, and in our case, kind of went in support of General Assembly 33426, which also included the Hudson River Valley or the Hudson River sightings, which I think you even saw a UFO in the Hudson, if I'm not mistaken. I think you told me that about 10 years ago. And that, or there was one near the bridge. Yeah, right,
Yes.
actually, and I actually saw a picture of it that was taken by a police
Oh, and
officer.
my brother saw.
Yeah, that's the bridge. That's what we
Well,
were going over
This is a
when we.
hotbed of UFO activity. The Hudson Valley.
And this is right near the Hudson. This was right maybe 45 minutes away. And that's the bridge we were
Wow.
going over. And that's the Housatonic, which ran parallel with the Hudson. And that is where
From-
we saw or ran across that ant-like insect, was not far from that bridge right there. And because there was a lot of mining for magnesium for the atom bomb back in the 40s, there were still these underground facilities.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Is that from Springfield? 45 minutes from Springfield, you said?
No, that's 3 miles from New York. The incident that we had was, I mean, seriously, I could ride a bike to New York. Not, 45 minutes, I would say, by car. I could be in White Plains or North Shore, and I could be in Manhattan in about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, even though it's very rural, and hilly and mountainous, if you will, the
This is
Berkshires.
Willow.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Willow Lake, right?
Willow Lake, yeah, that's
called it Willow
kind of
Lake.
what it was called locally. Yeah, Willow Lake. Yeah. And now there's willow trees there, and there didn't used to be. But a lot of people, because of what
I
happened,
remember it.
yeah, you're right. Right, it was a long time ago. It went out on the radio back in the '60s. Matter of fact, I think you've got the article, don't you? Maybe do you remember hearing anything about this? Can you, Tim, if you don't mind,
In regards to what?
the article from the '60s that had to do with that Willow Lake area, if you will,
Well, I
Sheffield.
published. Yeah, I published a few. Yeah. Well, I published a few articles on UFO Digest
one?
about you.
No, that's the Boston
That was another
Globe.
one. 1979, Unga
This one?
433.
Yes.
And I did 2 articles on your family.
Well,
I think
that's an
this is
interesting one. Usually you see a D on the end of pursue.
yeah. So this was actually the article about our
So
case.
this is a newspaper account of your.
Yeah. 1967. It was rerun, and this was about 15 years before the Hudson River Valley sightings, which took place on another body of water, only about 45 minutes away, which ran into the island of Manhattan.
Right.
So this is the actual article involving our case, which we've talked about in the
Northern
past.
Manhattan,
And,
then up through the.
I'm sorry?
Hey, let me ask you: has had any other visitations, encounters, or insights?
Since in the last 10 years or so, just like we get a lot of paranormal activity. Oh, by the way, this is a great shot. Thanks, Tim. This is actually
Yes.
one of the spheres that was seen right near the Hudson. I'm sorry, the Housatonic River next to our park where this incident took place. That was taken by a farmer in broad daylight just before they found these, what it looks like crop circles. So there. Now, what do you think of that? That was found not far from the Hudson River. That was near our park, if you will, or our incident. And a lot of those are said to be almost heated and bent down, but it's corn. And I've never really heard or seen anyone else talk about a crop circle in corn.
It proves. Well, I think it proves that UFOs operate on a particular electromagnetic field or microwave field that has the ability to affect organic matter in this way. Basically, twist it up, coil it up around itself. So I tell people that UFOs are dangerous vehicles. It's not good to get within the field of UFOs.
I'm supposed to tell you it was a nice looking bridge, Tom.
I see there was a list of questions.
Yeah, it was a spooky little bridge. I'll tell you that. They've
Yeah, it
redone
looks
it.
really pleasant.
So they've
Yeah,
actually
it's
burned down.
kind of headless horseman territory, kind of. Sleepy Hollow.
We apologize for the technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's really
tonight.
bad.
We're trying, but it's coming from Robert's end. We're having difficulties with his internet provider.
Yeah, it's New York City too. He's in downtown New York, so there's an awful lot of people probably piggybacking on his stream.
Yeah, so please bear with us.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the best I can here too. But then again, you know, Robert and I go back a long ways. I'm going to say we met what 20 years ago probably, and so I've got a lot of respect for the guy. I mean, but I would like to.
Years.
How long? What? See, it's really. Anyway, let's do this. So, hey, Robert, what do you think is more? What do you think people are seeing more now? Do you think it's the Nordics? Do you think it's the reptilians? Do you think it's the Greys? What are you hearing now? What is the things have changed a lot in the last 10 or 15 years, and people are more open to talk about things that they may not have wanted to talk about before. Is there a pattern? Are you seeing a pattern in sightings?
Yeah, pattern in sightings of kind of openly, what I call sightseeing mode. They just don't care whether you see them or not. That's one aspect. The other one is regarding abduction activity. Some people feel that the ET hybrids have progressed to the point that they can pass for humans, and the more insectoid reptilian aliens aren't having to show up, since they can send on the mission and then blame the activity on human beings, but they're actually alien hybrid humans who are carrying out alien agendas. Some are still in some regions of the world than in others. Reptilians are still more active in Africa and South America than they are here.
Are you seeing more of a pattern of something different on the West Coast, perhaps, like California, Arizona, versus maybe?
Robert, you there?
Did you say?
Yeah, I was just asking if you think that there's more sightings of a particular craft or regarding the abduction experience on the West Coast versus like the East Coast, New York, and that kind of thing. Are you seeing a division there, or is what you're seeing as far as the differences have to do with maybe another part of the country or even internationally? We lose them?
That's a good question.
There's a
As I
delay.
see it, the principal negative alien about things like the skinwalker wrench,
Okay.
and the other, what is it called, the bullfrog wrench, another 20 miles up. That place is that's hopping. So large underground population of aliens that have these amazingly, what we would call occult powers, and that they also are very dangerous. This is the group that is irradiating researchers. You know, researchers go down there, get exposed either to the UFO or the skinwalker, and they wind up with brain lesions within 3 months. You know what I mean? Having brain cancer resulting from wandering around that different regions. And they're walking around Geiger counters and saying, oh, here we have a hot spot, you know? And so I was very impressed by the lecture given, I guess, at the Nevada UFO conference by the fellow from the Bullfrog Ranch, detailing parallel experiences to what the Skinwalker was doing. So this could be a race of aliens that live indigenous, perhaps, and living
So,
underground.
so Robert,
That's,
where this
that's the
where this
weird,
takes,
more paranormal alien.
where this takes place, is there a? I know there's a lot of interest now in crystal, and certain types of rocks and stones. And I know we've talked about the almost a healing power from certain
Yes.
types of. What is your feeling of when that there might be, I
Mhm.
guess, an interest with regard to underground because of these stones? We also had Brittany Barbieri on too, who has a
Right.
very strong feeling um, that these certain crystals and quartz and that kind of thing plays a part in the interest here, and that those quartz can hold an energy even.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've seen plans for the alien re-engineered vehicle, the ARV, and it seems that crystal is part of the power source. They have copper sheets uh, interlayered with crystals overlaying them. If you think of a diode and how a
Mhm.
diode is constructed, with a wire and then the barrel surrounding it, that would be a good idea about how they were conceiving building this rotating electromagnetic motor, in which each think of it as uh, plates of crystal. Imagine how heavy they are, how they would be.
Right.
Well, they
See,
were tremendously heavy, but when they turned on the electricity, it became anti-gravity. And
Kind
if
of
they
like the
spun
flux
it,
liner.
they could really, really crank up the energy and warp space-time.
Kind of
Yes,
like the
well, that's
flux
exactly
liner.
what I'm talking about, the flux liner, the one that
Yeah.
Mark McCandlish.
Right.
Exactly so.
And then he was silenced for that information.
Yes, I know. I was in contact with him at the time, and it was a huge shock to all of us. A great loss. He was a wonderful illustrator and a great scientist. He told me once that he saw a UFO go interdimensional, and it was at night in Palmdale, California, where he worked. Lockheed full above, and then he saw the UFO create a wormhole in the sky and jump into it. But the most interesting thing he said was that when the UFO opened up the wormhole in the sky, before it jumped into it, that he could see the solar system where it was going. So he had a brief glimpse through the window of the destination. I share that with you in memory of Mark McCandlish.
That would be really awesome to see a different solar system that we've never seen before through a portal.
yeah, I'm picturing it right now. You're
Yeah.
sitting there, you open up this
It's very vivid in my mind.
and you picture where you're going, and you bang, you're there. Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that scientists are theorizing,
The
Robert.
bang is the other
Uh,
interesting thing, that report of a thunder. Yeah.
Yeah.
anyways, what I was going to tell you, Robert, can you hear me? Well, anyways, I agree with
Yes.
you on the fact that scientists have been working on the theory that, the string theory involving portal travel to go through a hole and then you're there in an instant.
Yes.
So that would be the best way to travel large distances within the galaxy or outside the galaxy, interstellar even.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Robert, can I?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Hey, Robert, quick question. What is your feeling on generational abductions or experiences, or those who have had an experience? What is your, because I know you've interviewed a lot of people, their children, their offspring, family members. What can you give me an idea of what your thinking is when it comes to that side of the fence, if you will, the more up close and personal family members that experience something following maybe a parent, or even the parent following the child? Do you think maybe the parent had an experience that doesn't remember that? Where do you think it starts, and where do you think it ends?
I think it shows that you're part of an extended family of alien contactees who have been tracking your family or our families, because I feel I'm in the same boat. My family tradition in UFOs and alien encounters goes back at least to 1916 with my grandfather's experiences. So it's a generational thing because they have been involved in our lives observationally and also operationally, maybe to boost a certain particular more desirable characteristics, thing they have in mind. In one particular family, it might be exceptional intellect. And they want that. So they come in, hybrid, their exceptional intellect hybrid, or infuse the gene or boost it to amplify that. Maybe they're interested in the physical apparatus, like the incredible Hulk aspect of a human being. And they might want that characteristic, and they'll go in and interfere. And I mention that because there are so many U.S. Marines who, after they leave the service, become alien contactees, abductees, experimental subjects. So there's a huge intergalactic biological experiment going on.
I read,
Personally, I believe that the COVID vaccine humans to cull the herd, first of all. Yeah.
Okay. I heard.
I can't hear your question.
Okay, Robert, I heard recently that there's a possibility that the DNA program that's going on with some off world visitors during alien abductions could include the possibility of inserting some type of DNA switch within our DNA chain that they could activate at a moment's notice to either make us into slave labor or wipe us out all at once, or just make us more compliant.
Yes.
So if that were to happen, that would be extremely dangerous for what all of us, if not most of us, are going through, because it's said now that at least 90% of the population has been abducted, may or may not have memories of it, but have had occurrences.
Yes, absolutely true. The aliens have an ability to shut down the recording of the memory, but the body always remembers the insult. That's the key. They can shut down the conscious mind's ability to record the memory while it's happening, so they can't remember what they did record. Basically, it starts like that. But the physical body, when it's acted upon by external forces, has eyes of its own. Every heat sensing cell in our bodies is on our skin, the eye of a snake, and it sees what's coming. So when the alien comes and grasps the arm knows what is happening to it. The arm records the sensorial memory. And then after years, it depends on how it goes, whether it's a positive experience or an abusive experience, that energy will well up, will confess itself.
Yeah. There's a
I've been
physical memory and there's an
dream,
emotional memory that is always going to be there. I agree with that.
person will be able to recall it.
Right.
In my case, I've had a lot of body marks,
Of
and
course,
I've awakened.
first,
I've also awakened in the morning with my clothes on backwards and inside out. So I know something's happening, but I haven't got any waking memory.
right. Yeah. Well, those are signs. Another sign that people, if you suspect this is happening to you, you might get a black light. And after an episode, when you think it might have happened, take the black light and shine it on your skin. The aliens, when they grasp you, leave a phosphorescent imprint.
And where do you think that comes from?
And he was all,
Where do you think that comes from, Robert?
what do you, okay. I think of some aliens kind of being leaky.
So would you say that some aliens are like toads? They have a secretion that comes out when they touch you?
Because it broke up, and there are kind of, that is discernible if you have the right tools. And a black light. I've seen fantastic and the impact of aliens on arms and legs. That bruise. The bruise is evidence of the manhandling. For example, a friend of mine in Canada sent me son swimming on the stand, and he said, "What is that?" Because he had two huge bruises. And his eye, the fingers would have, and leaving the imprint of two
Hey
fingers.
Tim, can I, when you get a second,
fingers on the 12 year.
so
Go ahead, Thom.
do you have my son was actually tested. Do you have that test from school and stuff? I want to talk about this because I like where Robert's going. It's unfortunately the communication's not there, but hey Robert, this is actually my son's records. Now, just to give you an idea, he's also had experiences. My mother did, my brother did, my cousins do. It's insane. But 9 of us in our family are Rh negative, mostly O negative or A negative. And again, my son's AB negative. But he scored through the charts. I mean, I like to think I'm fairly intelligent, but I was nothing like this. And his mother, was just, there's no way. So we're wondering where this comes from. So he actually represented the school for this people to people. He went to Washington, D.C., the whole bit. He was scoring off the charts. But it was more than just this. Do you have the pictures with the tiger and stuff? And I think Robert Jr. used to have a tiger in Florida for a while.
I don't have the tiger.
That's my son right there. And again, this is he scored in the 127th superior limits. I mean, it was just insane. And we're wondering, yep, and he was tested at the Knoxville Hypnosis Center, where he tested higher than coincidental chance with respect to a form of remote viewing. So we go back to what happened with our family. And, I myself have had multiple experiences. My mother had her first one in 1954 in Maine when her brother was being looked at for a college back in the 50s. And so our family has had this ongoing. So none of this is new, but we all, we kind of wonder, I've always made the reference, I guess, that if you want a good racehorse, you follow that breed, that line. If you want a good pit bull, you follow that breed, that line. And so maybe there is something to that, but I never really totally bought into it. I was thinking, well, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe. But at the same time, it's not just my son either. My brother's kids. I mean, they're just. I mean, he could tell you what a franchise
Mhm.
for a Subway would cost when he was 5 years old. It was like no way he should know this stuff. He was he was unbeaten. He beat an unbeaten chess pro in
Mhm.
5th grade. Things like that. So this chess, this mathematical, these numbers, this insight. One day he had said to me, "Dad, are you okay?" He called me. He was at his girlfriend's house. It was like 5 years ago, and I assured him I was okay. I checked the doors, because when he says something like that, I take it. I put some thought into it, and I check the house. And he was so scared or worried that something was wrong with me or the house or someone living with me that he drove all the way back from his girlfriend's house, which was like 45 minutes away. And I live on a corner, so when he came around the corner to our yard or driveway, there was an SUV upside down on the backside of our property near the road. And he got there even before the police got there. So he actually felt it, saw it, sensed it somehow a half an hour or so before it even happened. And so,
Almost telepathy or
yeah, so
meta.
sometimes I don't know what to make of it. So I took him to get tested. And sure enough, he tested what they refer to as higher
Yeah.
than coincidental chance.
Well, actually, all of our perceptions are after effect. If you were able to shorten the transit time of the perception, the things are unfolding with certain people can feel the way to arrive. And a big part of martial arts stress to be able to feel that. Since in that you hear or touch or feel, because those things are in the past. And
And let me show you one more thing, Robert. Can you hey Tim, do you have the picture with the tigers?
it's
I
like
do
trying to
not,
get
but I can
riding
get
on
it.
off the stove.
I can get it.
Okay. I'd like to ask Robert this too. This is kind of interesting as well.
You want to
So
make your
because
way up to the front of the ship. Yeah, sure.
yeah, Robert, you're breaking up something terrible, my friend. We're hearing like every third word. It's really bad. It's almost impossible.
Yes, almost impossible to hold a conversation.
Right. It's that bad.
Yeah.
But we're doing the best we can, and
Yeah.
I'm going to get
I
that
can hear
picture
Tim
from.
better. I can hear Tim. Can you relay the question?
Okay, say it again, and I'll try and hear you. I was having a problem hearing you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you something, Robert, if you can hear me okay. When you have an experience, something else that I've at least personally in my family and friends, I can't hunt. I've never been able to shoot an animal. I've never been able to go hunting. I've always had a connection with animals, whether it be horses or wild animals. I had a hybrid wolf for a while. I had a Bengal tiger for a while. I had an Asian leopard for a while. Big backyard, run around. It was like part of the family. And for several years, or I should say 2 years, I had a tiger. I had a 70 pound Siberian tiger in Florida. And although it was kind of it was a gentle giant, it was my son who was able to bond with it and sit in a lawn chair with it in the whole bed. And I'd come home from work, he'd be in the backyard without me knowing about it. And I'd come home and like, Chris, where are you? And I look in the backyard and there he is at a lawn chair with this tiger. I'm like, are you kidding me? It hasn't eaten yet. But they had this connection. It was really interesting. So this one day, the 270-pound Siberian tiger had gotten its head stuck in this plastic big water jug, right? So it picked up its head, and he's got this plastic bucket on its head, and it's going absolutely crazy. I mean, it's jumping around. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere near this thing right now, right? So I was like ready to call somebody to come out and help me out, right? There it is. And oddly enough, my son, without my permission, ran up and just pulled the bucket off its head, took a hose, wet him down, and it was just like they were best friends. And so they had this relationship, this bond, and that's my son there with Hobbs, and at our house in Florida. And I mean, we raised it from when it was, we got it. Somebody had come over our house with this big cardboard box, and there were 4 tiger cubs in it. And we were just sitting at the house. It was like a Saturday weekend or whatever, and let all the tigers out in the kitchen. They were all running around, and my son sat down in the refrigerator, and this particular one came up, and just like any other, cat or dog, right? Yeah, was petting it, and the guy's like, "Do you want one?" And I was like, "Well, kind of, but I'm not really sure I can take care of it." And so we just said, "Throw me $50, it's yours." And that's how I got him. And so we raised him and had a big yard area to run around. It wasn't like he was, chained up all the time or anything. But it was interesting how they bonded. And I've seen some TV shows where people bond with these unique animals, and sometimes, unfortunately, they're attacked, instinct, whatever. But never any aggression, not towards Chris anyway. We had like a track around the development we lived in where it was like where you could rollerblade back in inline skates and that kind of thing. And when they came by the backyard, of course, they complained to the association. I lived in an association, so I get this call, "Mr. Reed, it's occurred to us that you've got a tiger." Right. So anyway, eventually we had to give it to a rescue up in Ocala. But when you start looking at all these things, not so much about me, but my son and my brother's kids, if you will. Unfortunately, we lost one in April, Wyatt, who was 17. But they're all very advanced, sensitive, intuitive, just overly kind and sweet, connected. And so again, I wonder, is there something that what happened with us? Was something exchanged, mutually exchanged? Maybe not just taken from us or given to us, but was there something exchanged that we passed on to our kids? And
maybe some type of download of information.
Something, because he's very different. It just, I mean, he knows things like we talked about the hurricane that just hit Florida. He's like, "Oh, it's going to have a barometric pressure of such and such, and it's going to be going at this speed." And all, it's just things that a child wouldn't know. So I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah. Well, so, I think that ET encounters not always a download. An ET encounter is not always a download with a person becoming more alien. If you come being human, then you would encounter the alien. Think about that.
Could be a hybrid program.
Yeah. The alien psychology in the human. When you're in the presence of this thing that's real into the essential particle of self, your humanity. Right. And there is a very distinct line of demarcation between humanity and alienness. So, so it's actually they may be more human than we know we are, or deprogramming and inhumanizing.
So there might not be really
an innocent creature may have been taken over, and with homicidal impulses.
So there might not be as great a space between us and them then.
I don't think so. I think
well, I think that's a big space.
But
again, it depends on which race are we talking about.
Good point. Right.
I think there's more kinship between us and certain aliens that are humanoid and who are cryptids. basically, or reptilians.
The
thing is,
one thing
who is the government in cahoots with? Who is big E's from outer space telling the government what to do?
right.
Tim, go ahead.
What I was going to ask you is in regards to the reptilians, do they present themselves in hooded robes in abduction accounts?
Not necessarily. No. That's, yeah. So it depends on the height.
All right.
You know, I'm talking about really.
Yes, I do know.
So,
it involves me. The being was over 6 foot.
Might be Zetas.
He was over 6 foot, wearing a robe. Couldn't see his face. My ex could see his hands, and they were scaly with long talons. And he was moving toward me. And she blacked
not
out.
Fingers, correct?
Not fingers. They looked more like claws.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
That sounds
so
like
I was wondering if that,
a reptile. It depends on, insects have claws too. It depends. You really have to see and look and study the morphology. If you could draw the hand.
I would have to get a sketch from my ex partner, because she's the one that has the memory of the hand. But that's when I woke up the next morning with my clothes inside out and wrong side too, and an impact bruise on my upper right forearm.
Wow. How long ago was that?
I would say 95 or 1996. One of those 2 years.
Where were you living?
I was living in Chatfield, Minnesota. That's probably about 30 miles from where I live now.
Was there any type of a wave or anything? Was there anything in the news about sightings?
No, but I did talk to other people in the apartment building I was living in, and one other couple that lived on the upper floor said that they had an encounter in the middle of the night where the wife woke up and her husband was missing from the bed, but he wasn't in the apartment. Wow. And then all of a sudden he was back by morning. So
this is in the same apartment building that you were in?
Yes, I was down below in an apartment underneath the steps, and we had these huge, big picture windows facing the front. So there was a big, large yard and then a big, large parking lot, which would allow for a smaller vehicle to land or hover.
Was there anything in the papers?
Not for that, but in 2009, I had that multiple UFO sighting that was 50 feet away, 500 feet up in the same city with 12 people present.
So do you think that you had an experience prior to that, or do you think that was, or that those particular episodes were your first?
No, I don't think they were my first. I think I had those things happen to me when I was a kid. When I mentioned in last week's interview, when I was talking about balls of light floating around my room that were golden color, they weren't pulsing, they were solid. And there were hundreds of them. And it happened 3 nights in a row at about the same time of night, around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I was trying to rationalize it as a kid, thinking, oh, it must be static from my blanket. Yeah. So I tried to rub the blanket to recreate it, and I couldn't. So whatever I saw was something other. And then when I saw that big black spider in broad daylight in my sister's doorway, yeah, that's when it
How big was happened. The spider?
Yeah, about 3 feet tall and maybe 4.5 foot wide. Black. Yep.
In your house? in your
in
door
our house,
to your
second
bedroom.
floor. It was in the doorway to my sister's bedroom, about 3.5 feet back.
Where were
So
you?
when I was walking down the hall to go to lunch downstairs, and I was about 3.5, 4 years old, and maybe 4.5 years old. I was young, and I was walking past the door, and I glanced, and I saw this gigantic spider, and it freaked me out so bad. I ran back into my room and slammed my door, and I was screaming for my mom and my dad, and they had to come upstairs to get me and bring me past that doorway because I would not walk past it.
It was gone at that point.
And when I walked past it, that point, yeah, it was gone. But
And
it
how
was
old were you
there.
again? You're 4 or 5?
Yeah, somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5. Yep.
My brother was about 5 when we saw what looked like an ant or a spider of sorts too. But that was in '69.
Well, let's see, 4.5, that would have been in 67 or 68.
Same
So
time.
right around the same time period. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? How far are you from Massachusetts when that happened?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I was in Valparaiso, Indiana, which is northeastern corner of the state of Indiana. So I don't really know how far that is. Maybe 300 miles.
Is that near Avon?
No.
The UFO hardware.
Because my brother saw something in Avon.
I was saying that was part of the UFO and message to abduct.
Robert, we're going to have to figure out your sound issues before we have you on again because we can't hear 90% of what you're saying.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Oh, we should do it. I never have trouble on Skype.
Okay, maybe we'll try that sometime. Okay?
Skype? Yeah. Okay.
We'll do that. We'll schedule you on Skype. But anyways, Tom, any last comments?
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting actually that you and I both saw something that looked like, I was always wondering why you were kind of like, a lot of people say, I never saw anything like that. You're kind of connected with it because you actually had seen something like, I didn't know this, that you actually had seen something very similar to that when you were a child as well. So
Yeah, more spider-like
yeah,
than bug or ant-like.
but it wasn't your
bug,
typical, what they refer to as a gray today or
no, it
it was
wasn't a gray. It was a giant
striking.
spider. And what's interesting is I only remembered the giant spider memory probably within the last year. It just came back to me in a flash. I had memories so clear I could describe it. I saw its mandibles. I saw its front legs moving. This is something that a 4.5-year-old shouldn't recall when they're an adult. I still remember it now, clear as day. And yes, it happened. We interviewed some people that also mentioned large spiders. When we talked to Tony Rodriguez, the person who claimed to have been part of the secret space program and training on Mars, he said on Mars they have spiders the size of motorcycles. So, and they're black. So I asked him during the interview, do you think that they are able to travel off planet? And he said he didn't know at the time, but it would be possible because what I saw was definitely scary, and it scared me enough to remember it into adulthood. Yeah, that's why I hate spiders to this day.
I don't like red ants. So yeah. And some people will say, well, did you get, how do you know what you saw? And I'll sometimes you can't actually prove something that you'd like to, but we've taken polygraphs for that kind of thing, and we've the behavior panel and everything we've done to support what we saw. And I had said to them at one point, well, we all breathe air, but we don't see it, right? So you can't really get a picture of air, right? So there are things that it's hard to get your head around. It's hard to get support for. It's hard to get people to understand what you went through and what you saw and so on. But it is interesting that you and I both saw something very similar, and we're not I'm hearing more and more people are seeing this type of insect or what have you, or still gets classified, I guess, or looked at as a reptilian type of that in that family, I guess. But I think there's a lot more alien life around us than different species, if you will, than that that we realize. Maybe we certainly talk about a handful a lot, but just like human beings, there's versions of us. There's short, there's tall, there's um, but I'm pretty sure that what we encountered again was underground. And so I would like to know kind of where you were to see if is there anything going on there, military, was there anything underground? Do you think, was there missing time in your incidents, your episode, if you will, or?
Not in Indiana, but in 95, 96, yes, there were a couple times I was driving, and it should have taken me a couple of hours to get somewhere, and it took like 5 minutes. I have no idea how I got there. It's almost like I passed out or something, and it's been unexplainable my whole life, and I've never told anybody about that until today. So,
Well, there was a wave there called the Kokomo boom. Are you aware of that?
yes,
My brother was part of that. My brother was working at in Brownsburg at the Indianapolis 500, and there was a wave back in, I think it was 2009, maybe 2008, and a lot of people were seeing these crafts and so on and so forth. And he was actually interviewed by the police department about it because of our incident in Sheffield. We were brought on their Fox morning show to talk about it, but he was part of that Kokomo boom, or I should say, was a witness to the Kokomo boom. And it sounds like there must be a hot spot over there too, because
yeah, Indiana has been a really big hotspot since the 70s. Even earlier than that, my mother saw a silver disc above her house in Calumet City. Shocked the heck out of the family, including myself, because at the time I was still investigating the phenomenon. And I didn't know my mother, being very straight-laced and Christian and kind of old school,
sure.
would have had an encounter like that. And she said, oh, yeah, matter of factly. She said, oh, yeah, I saw a silver disc reflecting light above our house. Now, I asked her, do you have a picture? And she's like, no, I didn't even think to get a camera out. I mean, it was there and then it was gone. Some people say that if you don't have a picture, it didn't happen. There was somebody in the chat that said that. And I'm going to say this to you. When you're 4.5 years old, you don't think about loading up a camera and taking a photo. Especially back in the 60s, you should have seen the size of the cameras and how difficult they were to use.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, we didn't have cell phones. So in regards to believing what we're saying, that's up to you. But I'm telling you, I know what I know concerning what happened to me. I'm not trying to prove it to any of you. If you want to accept it, that's up to you. Thom, now, his encounter has been proven historically true, and they have backed it up with documentation and evidence. Okay, so his can be proved. In regards to mine, it's purely speculation on your point because it's only you hearing my story. So, what better way to go on the journey than to hear other people's stories? Because now I can corroborate seeing the spider because there are other people that I've spoken to that have said definitely that they have seen a black spider. and it's like a screen memory or possibly the actual being. I don't know. So who knows? There could be multiple models of alien life form coming here.
Do you think what you saw could have been a shadow of something else that might have been a little further away and you were seeing a shadow of it? Maybe
No.
No, it was actually that.
I actually was taken to counseling concerning it. And
Sorry.
it was because I was so traumatized by it. It wasn't like a kid seeing a shadow and it was a pile of clothes casting.
No, I didn't mean a shadow like that. I mean the shadow of itself, why it looked black.
Oh, it might have been a different color. I don't know, but it did look black to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I can remember details is amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So what happened to your sister? Did your sister see it too?
No, my sister wasn't home. She was in high school at the time. I was the only one upstairs. My mom and dad were downstairs. I can honestly tell you that my brother and three sisters saw a large sphere of some kind. They said it was goldish white in color, and it was hidden behind one of the trees that paralleled our front sidewalk, on the ground outside the house.
During the daytime?
No, at night.
At night. Okay.
Yeah, about 9, 10
Do you have the
o'clock.
photo of the sphere that was taken at where our incident took place?
I do not
Just
have
see
that
what
right
people
now
think it's
because
got.
that. Yeah, I do have that little photo. Yeah.
That was
Hold
taken
on.
by a farmer. Yeah, that was right over where our incident took place, or the Sheffield, the park in Sheffield, if you will. That was taken right down the road from there. And anyone who's been to the park knows that this corn now grows 15 to 17 feet tall, which is astonishing in itself. And that was said to have been a landing mark or something that was formed right after they saw that sphere. So that
that's
marking
the
that
same.
sphere is the same time. I'm sorry?
That's the same area where the corn grows so big, right?
Well, that's a little further down. That's probably a quarter mile down. But what's interesting is that sphere that photo was taken while they had been investigating those markings. It all happened within the same couple of hours.
What would you say if some people say that's a bird?
Well, I have about 30 photos of those all over the place, so it's not a bird.
Okay.
They were my God, I think they sent me 40 to 60 of pictures of just this whatever it is moving around. At one point, it leaves a trail. So I don't
That's
know
cool.
what it is.
But
Yeah,
we
but
needed
it's a
to
lot
address
smaller
it
than what we
because
saw, but
we needed to address it because there are doubters out there that will say that it's nothing but a bird. So yes, it's an orb. So it's a sphere of some kind, and it was photographed over the original site of Tom Reed's family.
That was actually taken in, I'm sorry, 2013, when those crop circles or if those markings showed up, which made the newspaper, and which is right near where incident took place, probably quarter mile, half mile max, on the same side of the same cornfield, just further down. Yeah.
Okay, well, I do have something that I need to show people. Robert Morningstar is known for Aliens Among Us 2, 3, and Mystery Quest. ET's Among Us number 2 came out in 2018. ET's Among Us 3 came out in the same year. And Mystery Quest, he was the editor of UFO Digest in 2009 and was represented on the History Channel in 2009 as well. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew about that. We want to thank Robert Morningstar for being here, even though he struggled with his internet connection. And we will try to have him on a different platform so it'll go smoother for him next time. One thing I want to say is I need you guys to watch this. Well, somebody's playing it. Okay.
Yeah.
UFO Expo, the early bird, it seems like we lost Robert, but the early bird price of $79 runs out in 5 days. So if you're going to get your tickets, get them now. Right, Thom?
Yeah, and yeah, it's going up to $99 on December 1st, and then it goes to 125, I think. But again, it's it's going to be it's going to be one heck of a party. Basically, 3 days. We've got the mixer tents. We've got licenses to keep and serving alcohol until 1 a.m. We've got speakers, tracks, Travis, James Fox, Ben Hansen, Melissa Tittle. God,
Caroline Corey.
yeah, Caroline Corey, Mark D'Antonio. The Roswell Daily Record is going to show some news articles that they've never really shown before at a conference, if you will, about the Roswell crash. And actually, I believe the owner of the Roswell Daily Record is going to actually be speaking on behalf of their family's incident or participation in the original articles that came out and the photos that were taken.
Right.
Sarah Lee, I think, is her name. So it's going to be fun. We've got the droids. We'll have the droids there. We're kind of having a mix of 3 or 4 different events under one roof, and there'll be multiple things to do at the same time. So it's a first for us. It's a first attempt to bring in something additional to the Roswell Festival. And one of the things that we're trying to do, or what we're working with the city to do, was to have an event that was all air conditioned. The 4th of July festival it's hot. It's hot in New Mexico in July. And so there's no running around. We're all going to try to have it in different parts of this convention center. And at night, we're going to show movies. We're going to have a film fest. We're going to show films, I think, kind of on the side of the buildings or outside. And we're going to have drinks, and we're going to have a film fest. And so we're going to be doing stuff outside once the sun sets. And then during the day, it'll be inside. So.
And one of the films that's going to be released is Moment of Contact.
Yeah, James Fox.
That will be broadcast on one of the walls or inside.
No, that's going to be inside. That's going to be in the main convention hall.
Cool. That'll be in the main convention hall. And James Fox will be there in person. So if
you
get there,
and from Vermont,
come meet him. We're going to be featuring James Fox on this channel on the 10th of December. So come watch us and ask your questions of James Fox, and hopefully we'll have a better internet connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't believe we had that problem today. I was like, oh my God, because Robert's a good guy. I've known him for a long time, and just it was terrible that that bandwidth couldn't hold up. And I'm thinking to myself, oh God, I've been trying to get him on this for a while, and but
yeah, we're sorry to disappoint him a little bit, but
but
we did the best we could with what we had, and Thom did a fantastic job. So we give him kudos for that. And I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming, and I want to thank everybody who watched online. And if you can come next week, we got Jesse Marcel III, the great grandson of Jesse Marcel, who handled the Roswell debris. So
wreckage, yeah.
Yep. Hopefully you can be there and hear his testimony.
Thank you everybody for your understanding. You got a good following here, because a lot of people would have just said, but thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.